Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April meeting for the Wisconsin Woodworkers Guild. Testing. Good? Good? Is that good? I find it hard to believe you can't hear me, but hold on one second. If you were a little bit more, how's that? Better? Okay. Well, welcome to the April meeting for the Wisconsin Woodworkers Guild. To all the visitors that we might have this evening, welcome to you. I've got a couple of announcements we're going to go through real quick, and then we'll get to our speakers for this evening. If you got that notice, we have the virtual wood shop coming out. It's coming up here April 23rd. It's a Saturday. It's going to start at 9:30. It'll be down here. There is a cost of $20 to come down if you're a member. There is a form, I think Floyd sent them out, and I think Floyd, wherever you are, I'm going to ask you to send them out again. Because we're going to be getting sandwiches from Jimmy John's. There's going to be Kringles here in the morning. We're going to try to get some coffee set up. We'll have soda and water for the lunch hour, if you want to call it that. But on that form, you'll see if you fill it out, and so you can order a sub sandwich, and we'll probably go over and get them, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock, whatever. But fill out that form, and I think on there it's got, Ron, they're coming to you, right?
Yeah.
Send Ron the $20. Try to get it in early if you can so we can get a decent count. You can sign in here. It's going to be $25 at the door, but it's going to be a full day. There's going to be 4 speakers, and then I think the option of a 5th possibly to come in there. So, yes, Bruce?
What is this about? I don't remember hearing it.
Well, one guy's going to talk about router techniques. Another one is going to be talking about putting a dado in your table saw. There's one talking about finishing, and a 4th one is going to be talking about if you want to sell some of your stuff, some of the pitfalls, I guess, and things like that. Floyd has that all written up. If he sends that thing out, it'll give you a real good breakdown, let you know exactly what's going on. So get your money in for that from 9:30, and I'm going to say it's like 5 or 5.5 hours, isn't it, Jerry?
About that, yeah. They're about an hour apiece. These
Yeah.
are videos.
Yeah, they're videos. So, but well worth it. So that's on April the 23rd, 9:30. We're almost done with our electrical over here. The electrician is coming in next week. So I'll spend some time with him. We'll get it up and running, and then we're going to see about putting the shop together so that we can start to actually, run more and more equipment down here. So that'll be next week. Our balance in our checking account as of tonight is $7,033.25, and we have 82 members.
84.
84 members. Thanks, Rob. Now also coming up, there is a Leiluna, I hope I said that right. Leiluna Collections. It's going to be a shop tour on May 14th at 10:30. If you're interested in it, they don't have to sign up, do they, Jeff?
Do, just be there on time.
Okay, be there at 10:30. Jeff did send out a video, I think it was, or maybe it was Floyd or
What
something.
about a link to their
A
website?
link.
They basically make furniture out of like rough branches and stuff. So if you think of what you see at Potawatomi, they've sold their stuff to the casino and they've sold to Disney.
Yeah.
They do chairs, beds, bunk beds, dressers, whatever you can imagine.
It's all rustic,
Yep.
but it's kind of nice.
Where is this place?
It's in River West. The address is in the Ripsaw.
910, it's on the corner of Burleigh and,
Burleigh.
yeah,
So.
Can you send an email on that?
there will be.
Okay.
All of this is in the ripsaw this past month, so you can
Yes,
look
yeah.
at it there and find the information.
Bruce, it's in a ripsaw. We have got Ron Ingen next month. He's going to show us some of his carving after the gentlemen are done tonight. That's going to be in June. June, we are having Jerry Anson. He's bringing down the drill bit, that huge drill bit that you remember.
Hand drill. The big hand drill.
Hand drill, I'm sorry. The big hand drill, and he's going to show how he and some of the members here built that. And will you have it put together?
Yes.
Okay. So that's going to be in June. July, we will have the show and tell. Yes, Ron?
The next meeting, I was told it'd be talk about ducks,
Yes.
just ducks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Ron's our speaker. So it'll. So that Leiluna's in May. We've got the. I gotta catch up here. Hold on. We got the May to June to July is the show and tell. So if you want something that you want to bring it in so guys can see what's going on. August, there is no meeting. September is going to be a lady that Ron is in touch with. She's slaying woods.
She's slaying wood, yeah.
She's slaying woods. She makes beds in the inner city for kids that may not have them. So she's going to come and give us a talk in September. October, we got Curtis Van Wielden. He's also a turner. He's going to show us how to do Chippendale chairs, or how he's been doing them or carving them. November, I'm trying to get Type Bond to come in. One of the gentlemen from the Green Bay group sent me an email. So we're trying to get somebody to come down here and explain all the different glues and what's the best glue to use where and when. So we're hoping for that for November, and then December is going to be our Christmas party. We haven't started working on next year yet, but as long as we get it through the end of this one. Anybody have any questions? Did I forget an announcement?
I got something.
Bob?
Well, 4 years ago, a friend of mine passed away. His wife was finally decided to start getting rid of some of his woodworking equipment. And I put together a list of all the stuff, the big stuff he's got, what she asked me to do is that tell you guys about it, but she's asking that you would contact me, because she doesn't want a lot of people that she doesn't know come into her house and look at the stuff. So I think you'd appreciate that. But I'll put this list over there, and then you can take a chance. You can pick whatever you want if you're interested. A lot of stuff looks like brand spanking new yet. And what he did was rather unusual. He told me about 5 years ago, before he passed away, he put prices on everything, so she would know roughly what he paid for it. So she wouldn't just giving the stuff away. So I thought it was kind of a neat idea.
All right, Bob, thanks. I just happened to think of this. The Christmas elves, they took this part right here, which is a part of the cutoff from Ron's birds, and they made a car out of it, and it's kind of sharp. This was made by Dick Garby. I'm going to set it up over there. We do have extra blanks if you want them. You got to make cars for the kids for the battered women's shelters that we give them out in December. So that's kind of an idea of what they can do with them. Anyone else? Okay, then if there is no one else, I'm going to turn it over. I get Dennis Model. You're coming up first tonight, huh?
Yeah.
Dennis is with the River Bend Carving Club. So we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. Hi, I guess I've been a member of this club for 10 or 15 years now, and before that with the turning group for a long, long time. And about 5 years ago, I joined the Riverbend Carving Club. It meets in Racine. That's where I live. So it's pretty convenient for me. Can you pull up the first slide? Yeah, okay, this is the first slide. This is what the club does. You know, basically we get together and carve, you know, we teach other people. I can't even read what I wrote. Yeah, that's what happens when you get old. You know, and we,
Probably a reflection of your shirts.
thank you. This is a real chick magnet. We went to, are you guys familiar with Blick?
Did you carve that shirt?
Yeah, I'm working on, yeah, and I signed with my DNA already, my very own DNA. Yeah, I mean, these girls at my ad were, where'd you get that shirt? Where'd you get that shirt? You know, and then they said, well, I gotta get one for my boyfriend. Yeah. But anyway, we also teach classes, you know, for people that want to start learning how to carve. So, go to the next one, please.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Does any of the people in your club let you paint their carvings?
Well,
After
actually,
the shirt you picked out.
that's usually Sandy's job. And Sandy does a fine job on that. You know, over the years we've done, and we'll talk about that, but, you know, we've done Christmas ornaments, and we just finished a couple of chess sets. And, you know, Sandy is, and some of the other women in the club do a really fine job, you know, painting them. So, this is one of the club events. We try to go to several pumpkin festivals every fall. What was that, at Jerry Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, down at Racine. We do Hawthorne Hollow, and there's several other art fairs. And the club will rent a table. It makes it a lot easier, you know, for members to get and, you know, show their work. You know, and especially when you're doing smaller stuff. You know, and the woodturners run into this all the time. You end up with far more than what you can display at home. You know, so this is a good way to share it. Do another slide. We're missing one, okay. We meet on the third Thursday of the month, so guys can all join. It doesn't conflict with this. And we meet at Riverbend. It's a nature center. It used to be an old Girl Scout camp, and it's on the river in Racine. And it's a very, very nice building. It even has windows going outside. You know, and we carve on the first and the third Saturdays of the month. They're also in the morning. And the first and the third Saturdays are when we have kids come in to learn how to carve. We sort of laid off on that recently, well, for a couple of years now due to COVID. Yeah.
What do we need to bring for the class if we want to go to it?
You just show up, basically. We've got a set of basic carving tools, and we've got some projects.
Where's the bill in here?
Yeah, little plaques, you know, 4x6 basswood or something like that with various things.
We do an eagle head relief carving for the first class.
Maybe let's just, yeah.
Pass around.
Yep. We'll just pass these around.
We've got about a half a dozen different relief carving patterns if you want to start doing relief carving.
Yep. So we start people out on relief carvings, and, you know, from there we do a couple of those, and, you know, from there you can decide what you want to do. You know, if you want to carve something in round, or carve something more detailed, or carve feathers. We also have, well, there aren't any of the decoys here, but some of the guys are really good, and they carve details of the decoys that look real, or other birds, do a really fine, fine job on that. So, but you really just show up by yourself, and you're ready to go.
Do you have any good chip carving guys?
We have several members at Chip Carve. You know, we do have some club projects, but, you know, people show up and pretty much carve what they want, you know, at the meetings or on Saturdays. You know, so, you know, and like here, we've got a lot of resources at the club. You know, and these are some of the magazines that we, like you guys, are getting rid of the magazines, don't need them in the library anymore.
Tell them that the guy in his right's done a lot of chip carving.
Oh, yeah, you're sitting, look at Danny Bell right next to you. He's one of our better chip carvers. You know, and Danny also, one of the things that he's doing is, you know, carving presidents, and you can actually look at them and know which president it is that he carved. So, so we've got power carving equipment, we've got wood burning stuff. Let's see what else we have up there. We've got chisels and knives for beginners. We've got sharpening equipment, and lots of good-natured ribbing and fun.
You said first and third Saturday, what time?
Between 9 and 11:30. This is all on the, this is on the slideshow, and I guess I don't know if the guys are going to put it in the newsletter or what.
Do you supply thumb guards when you're doing this?
Yes, we do have thumb guards, and we have lots of Band-Aids. And
Super glue.
super glue
And
works.
that works. I use super glue.
Yes, and actually, usually I'm kind of careful, but if the knife is sharp enough, you barely feel it.
No, I think that's originally how super glue started out, because they started using it in the Army, medics.
Yeah, but there's not too many people cut themselves, but yeah, every now and then, oh, wish I hadn't done that, but, okay. And so here, a list of club projects that we've done, and, a lot of what we do is we make the chests that each one of the members carved a piece, and somebody made the board, and, we'll, attempt to sell it at the art fairs. And so, it helps the club coffers that way. This year, what's the project, the nativity set?
Yeah.
They've done Noah's Arks and, wooden quilts, and at Riverbend at the Nature Center, it is a nature center, and it's got, the beams, and we've carved, pieces to go across the beam and cover that up. And so one of these days I'll carve a bear, a chainsaw carve a bear to hang over the beam, sleeping, so. Hit it again. That's the chest set. And Sandy painted them. You and the crew painted them.
Yeah.
We just carved them. So that turned out pretty good. Okay, go to the next one. So are there any more, questions in general? Now here, this is a good one. Now look at this one. I took a class at Arrowmont last fall. And it's a folk school down in Tennessee. If you guys ever want to really learn how to do something, take a class at a folk school for a week. And this class was with the Turners, know these names, Dixie Biggs and Betty Scarpino. And this is one of the things that they, had taped onto the wall. And so I guess how many of us have projects that have been laid around in the basement for 5, 6, 7 years or something like that. And this sort of explains that. Okay.
It's not a project that was around 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So now we can talk about individual projects. And I know you're interested in how we can decorate furniture, how we can integrate carving into furniture. How many of you guys knew John Elgas? I know he was more active in the Turning Club, and emphasis on new. And we put John in that 2 weeks ago. And I can explain to you a little bit how we made that. There was a rotary carving was on that, and I used some power carving. And who uses rasps? The top on that started out as a piece of 6/4 curly maple, and went after it and rounded it down with rasps. And I can show you how we did that, and I brought the rasps along. Hang on. Yeah, people that don't use rasps, tend to think of the ones that were in the bottom of the grandfather's toolbox, and with that piece, that's just a test piece. I used a coarse rasp on it, a finer rasp, card scraper, and then went to 240 grit sandpaper. And it took, it's curly maple. Who's worked with curly maple? Yeah, what do you think about that? It's just, you look at it cross-eyed and it just tears, and the rasp, handles it. Let me pass the rasps out. Yeah, those are RU rasps, and they're hand cut, you know, so the teeth are random. Yeah, they work good for scratching your back. You know, and I think they're about $125 now, but it's one of those tools that, you know, you'll buy and you'll say, gee, I wish I had done that 20 or 30 years ago. You know, they're really worth it. It opens up a whole new realm. You know, when you do edges and corners, you're no longer, you know, tied to the router bit shapes, you know, that you have, because you can do anything you want with them. And they're pretty quick. You know, I mean, I think I spent 10 minutes on that, you know, piece that, you know, is going around. It works really well. And I know I don't see Ken here today. When he made his Samuel's rocker, he used a lot of rasp work on that. You know, and so if you get good ones, they're really a worthwhile tool. Go to the next one. Okay, this is the kind of tools, you know, that we typically use. Or this is where we get tools, you know, good sources. The power carver that I'll show you, believe it or not, Woodcraft upstairs has the best price out of the ever seen, you know, including eBay and Amazon. You know, you look, MDI carving is another really good source, you know, for rotary carvers and you know, bits and that sort of thing. Hummel it's not the things that your grandmother used to keep. It's a carving place that's out near Rockford, and they have a pretty good selection. The last three, Highland Hardware is in Atlanta, and Lee Nielsen and Lee Valley are both very good sources for rasps. The rasps that they carry upstairs they're not worth having. So, okay. Here's some more. Okay, now here for power carvers. Is it? Okay, power carvers. Automont. A reciprocating carver, and this works really well. It's like, you know, pushing a chisel through butter. You know, and you can get all sorts of different chisel heads for it. You know, they're just, you know, easy to change. And I can do something, if there's time, I can do something and show you how easy it is. And you can go across the grain and just make, you know, curves and, you know, everything else. And I'm not going to pass this around because it's pretty sharp.
How expensive are the reciprocating carvers?
Okay, if you go upstairs and get them on sale, they're $250. If you go on Amazon and eBay, they're $400. Now, and you can find them used on eBay for $125 or $130.
Do they, when you buy those, do they come with like gouges or anything? You know, it's.
Yeah, they come with 5, and what you typically, and it's a reasonable selection. But what almost everybody does is buys a big set. And this set upstairs is $160, but on Amazon it's $110. So. Let's see. And for rotary carving, you know, you can do something like this. And it makes a lot of sense to make patterns for your leaves. You know, but if you use paper, you can't put paper on a surface like this, on a compound bend. You can do it on a flat surface, but if you get some, I've got some, you know, the magnetic sign material that you put on car doors, you can trace the pattern on there, or if you get the right kind of blender pen, and you can go to Blick downtown and they'll sell you a blender pen, you put a Xerox or a laser jet print with the ink side down, and then go over the back side of it with a blender pen, and that'll transfer the pattern onto your piece. so you don't have to go after it with a pencil and you know, whatnot. So, yeah, that piece, I turned that at home and took it down to, I did that at Aeromont, and that took about 4 hours, and then another hour to paint it. And those are just, you know, acrylic paints that you can get anywhere, you know, Hobby Lobby or anything like that.
What kind of wood is it?
That's soft maple. There was a tree that I had in the backyard. You know, if you want to carve bowls or vases, you got to make sure that you turn it on end grain. If you do the normal side grain ones, the chisels will tend to dig in. They'll dig in, you know, as the grain changes. And you also need to turn it a little thicker, you know, where you're going to carve. You want to do them even about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Do you do your carving while it's green?
No, you typically not, because you know when you carve it, you want to end up with a nice surface that you don't want to have to finish, or that you don't want to have to sand afterwards. Because if you sand it too much, you'll lose the crispness. And you know if you try to carve green wood, it ends up fuzzy. You know, the other thing too that carvers are, you know, particularly aware of is how sharp your tools are. And I know there's, over the years, there's been lots of classes here on how to sharpen tools and whatnot. And I know Ken is, you know, likes to use diamond stones, which are probably the best there are. How many of you guys have Tormacs? I bought a Tormac, and I'm very disappointed with it. You know, and if you read, all the literature says how fast the Tormacs are.
They're super slow.
And they say that they're faster than, you know, one of the high-speed systems. And of course, if you read the instructions, it says that on a 1/2-inch chisel, you got to push down on the stone with about 25 pounds of force. You know, I'm used to, you know, when you just sort of touch, you know, the chisel.
They're good for keeping it sharp if you don't use your tooth, but for sharpening it from, you know.
So what I did here is I've got a junky chisel that I hit on a 180 CBN wheel. You know, it's not very sharp. I'm going to put it on that, you know, in about 10 seconds. You know, it'll be sharper than anything, you know, that you get off a Tormac or anything that you can do by hand. And all it is just a hand hone that turns backwards with a leather strap. You know. There, now, try that.
You trust us?
No. Then I used up my only bandage. So, but I mean, that's all it takes. And that was just off of one. Do it on the corners, you know, a cross grain. Do a cross grain on the very ends. Bruce is gonna sign with DNA. And see, notice how it comes off and it looks polished? Yeah. You could do that if you want. So does anybody else have any questions when these other guys finish talking? You know, then I'll go back and I'll carve this in about, this is something that you could put on a piece of furniture, you know, like on an end panel. And if you don't pester me, and I go really fast, I can probably do it in 3 minutes. You know, I mean, it just goes zip, zip, zip. You know, now it won't be perfect. If I'm going to do it for myself, it would take me 15. But, you know, I know what your span of attention is. It's probably longer than mine is. So anyway, You guys want to say something?
I got something.
Yeah.
They have a nice website. I was on it 4 or 5 months ago. And they didn't have any classes going yet, but it is a
Who?
nice website.
Who?
Carver's.
Oh, yeah. This is Sandy. She does everything at the club. You know, she's one of those people the club would probably fold without her. And she can throw a really good party, too. But just don't make her laugh.
Hi, it's nice to be here tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that we do is Paul was telling me to tell you about where we come up with our ideas. And a lot of times I carve scrap. So whatever they all cut off, they give it to me, and I have boxes of it in my garage now. And I see faces in there, and I see different things in there. This is a little house that I saw in this little, it's a silly looking little house. And this is a sleigh I got out of another piece of scrap. And then I do things like this with it's a cutoff. I do a lot of things with the cutoffs at the end. And over there I have a squirrel that I did it. It's very thin. And you were talking about putting something on wood, or what you can do with wood with carvings. And you can carve something and then glue it onto the wood. Or you can carve it right into the wood. Yeah. And this is a crazy little elephant that I've done. And but where we get our ideas from is sometimes the magazines and sometimes old family pictures. Right now I'm doing it's a picture of myself and my sister when we were about 4 years old. Or I was 4, she was 3. And and I'm doing this out of basswood. And I'm carving it, I carve with a knife and gouges. And I've got just 3 or 4 favorite ones that I do, that I use. And
Did you bring it?
no, I didn't bring it. I was going to bring it, but I thought it would be too much. And because it's a pretty good sized piece. In order to get the faces the way I want, I needed to have a larger piece rather than just an 8 by 10. So, but I get my inspiration from out in nature, from magazines, from all over the place, and sometimes just from the wood itself. You start carving, and over there I have a crazy piece that's got a dragon on it. And above the dragon is another small dragon. And I was carving the one and just seeing what would come out of the wood. And this little dragon came out and decided he wanted to be in the picture too. So he's there. And sometimes the wood will tell you, and you all know that, being, woodworkers. So, and what else? We do a lot of comfort birds that we donate to River Bend, and then they sell them, and
We sell them too.
and we also sell them at some of the craft fairs that we go to. And you saw the picture of the pumpkin farm before. We teach people how to carve their pumpkins. If little kids come up and they want to carve a pumpkin, we let them draw the face on, and then we'll do some of the carving and let them do some too, and show them how. I don't know, what else did you want to show? Oh, okay. It's sturdy. This is Paul's creation. I carved this one. He's got a longer one. This is a bean spoon. And you put it in the beans and you turn it. And all the little parts come out of the beans, they climb out of the spoon and get out of it, and you have heartless beans. So, Paul should have told you that one. I'll turn it over to you, I guess.
I can talk a little bit about where we get our ideas. This magazine's got a lot of nice knife carving projects, and there's some chip carving projects in there somebody asked about. This is a magazine called Chip Chats, and it's got a lot of carving shows, and they show a lot of the things in there and you get ideas. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and there's a couple guys, Doug Linker's the one that I watch the most, and so he did this, where's the camera? It's a gnome, he calls it a gnome for all season. This one you made into a leprechaun, and then you can put a Santa hat on there, or you can put, he's got bunny ears on one, and he's got a pilgrim, so you can make it all kinds of different things, and they're kind of simple, quick things. This was a little, I don't know if you can see it, it's a little, he calls it a pocket penguin. And you can carve one on each end and then cut it off, and it's kind of a quick little thing, and you give it to somebody, they can use it in their pocket to rub or whatever for stress. He did these little owls, and I've done a bunch of them now, and I've got, back here on the table, I've got the different steps where you mark it out of a square block, and you start notching it out, and you cut it. This was in one of the carving magazines, a little Christmas tree, and I've done a lot of those too. They're kind of fun and easy. You don't have to think too hard about what you're doing. You kind of relax a little bit.
Snowman?
Yeah, these are a couple little snowmen that I've carved, and this one on Facebook, I'm on about 3 or 4 different Facebook carving pages, and somebody had the picture of that on there, so I carved that one. I thought it was kind of neat. And this is a little one that was on Facebook too.
Santa?
Oh, that's, I didn't run that,
Okay.
Danny, you want to talk about power carving a little bit? No? Doug Linker had these little Easter egg bunny things on there too last week, so I started carving them. I'm going to do some of them for my grandkids for Christmas. I mean, Easter. This was a little gnome that I found on Facebook too, and I kind of liked him, and he was kind of easy. You don't have to carve eyes on these if you carve the hat down, just right to his nose.
Does it look alike?
Yeah. This was another one that was on Facebook, and this one, the whole front of him's a beard, so you don't have to worry about
Can
doing
you hold the
much.
microphone closer to your mouth?
This one I found on Facebook too, and the beard is the whole front of it goes all the way down, so you don't have to carve anything too tricky on there either.
What kind of wood are you using?
Most of this is all basswood, and I kind of pick it up. I got some family up around Wausau that I've been getting some from, and I buy some. There's Heineke Woodworking up in northern Wisconsin. They got the best basswood, I think, and they ship, and they're really nice to talk to. First time I talked to them, I got all done, and I was going to give the lady my credit card, and she says, "No, we don't take credit cards. We'll send you an invoice after you get the wood, and you can send us a check." And I thought, that's pretty trusting. These are stars that you start with just a square block, and you start notching out the each corner, side, and just keep rotating around. And it looks kind of complicated, but it's pretty simple to do too. What else we got? Rick, do you want to talk about something?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I started carving a couple of years ago, and I have a small wood shop, and I heat it with wood, so it gets pretty dry in there. Do you guys notice, I don't know if you got it's more climate controlled where you carve at home or whatever, but it seems like if my humidity drops real low, because I'm burning wood, is there any recommendation you use? Because it seems like the basswood gets kind of brittle when it's really dry.
Yeah, it does. And
I sprayed it, but
I used alcohol, 50/50 alcohol and water, and you spray that on. And,
yeah.
and then he said you don't want to carve it green, but if basswood's just in between green and dry, I think it carves a little easier. I got a bird over there that's made out of catalpa, and that I've got some that's really dry and it's hard, and I've got some that it's been cut a little sooner and it's a little damper, and it seems to cut a little easier.
So when you spray it, do you leave it sit for a little while first?
Just a couple minutes, and it usually makes a big difference in how hard it is, especially if you hit a hard spot or something like that. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but just a comment to the dryness. I know it's a pain in the butt, especially for me, but in my shop, I run a humidifier in the wintertime and a dehumidifier in summertime. You know, to help keep everything kind of at a nice equilibrium. And I notice when the water runs out of my humidifier, like in wintertime, you know, then everything gets real dry and I'm getting shocked every time I turn around and, touch something metal. But
I've been boiling a lot of
just an
water.
idea, I thought. I mean, a little bit of a pain, but it works.
Yeah.
It works out real nice.
Not a bad idea.
Are you gonna say anything about wood burners?
I was going to let Denny do that, and we can get him to come up here. He's hiding way in the back there. He's got his head down right now. Wood burners. You want to talk about wood burners?
Sneak past you.
Hi there. When I originally started carving, I was doing a lot of ducks and birds, and when you do ducks and birds, you do a lot of wood burning to get the features and the feathers. So I expanded that and started doing other things with wood burners too. And we also carve at the senior center on Sunday morning, and we've got about half the people there are doing wood burning because they just enjoy that as much as they do the carving. So, what I can tell you about wood burning, it's like most of your wood carving or your woodworking, it takes practice to get everything to come out right. That's what you have to do. It's pretty simple to do. You just take I use 1/8" plywood, about like this piece Denny has here, but I use plywood. And transfer the pattern out with a piece of carbon paper, and then you do the burning and shading depending on what style of burn you want to put on it. You can do anything you want. I've done horses and people, and I used to do veterans canes. I've done about 600 canes for veterans from Vietnam, or from Iraq and Afghanistan. And the designs I put on them were all wood burned on there because it's so small. By the time you try carving on it, you end up with nothing. So it works real well for that, transferring the design onto something small. There are several different kinds of wood burners. There's a kind that we used when we were kids. They look like a soldering iron, and some people could do some unbelievably fantastic work with them. I have a different type of wood burner that I use. It's called a wire tip wood burner. And you can get a variety of different tips on it. You get rounded tips and square tips and scale tips if you're doing snakes or fish. You adjust the heat on it. The heat's adjustable, and it's really good. You can pick one of them up with a good selection of tools for maybe $125, $150. The lower end ones, you can go up to $1,000 if you want to. I don't know what else I can tell you about wood burning. It smells a bit good. Sounds like you're out camping when you're doing it. That's a nice thing. Anybody have any questions about wood burning?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I found over the years, there's certain wood burners that work really good. So before you buy one, you gotta know what it does. I had some guys that I was helping, teaching to burn feathers. So they bought this wood burner. They couldn't turn it way down, so you get a light burn on it.
Yeah.
It just burned heavy and dark and dark. So if you do buy a wood burner, make sure that you can turn the heat down so it can burn real light.
Yeah, especially if you're doing feathers.
Yeah.
When you're doing a feather, you're almost supposed to not even see where you burn. The heat softens the wood enough that you can leave a little impression in there, so you're creating a texture for the feathers as opposed to creating a color. Some carvers actually color their birds with a wood burner, but that's, you know, a little, couple more steps up the rope. So, anything else? Rick, it's all up to you, buddy.
Well, how about if we take a break before this gentleman starts?
All right, okay.
And then we'll start out with him after that.
Okay.
All right, take about 10 or 15 minutes.